Hello everyone, my name is Jordan and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be working with configurations in Bukkit coding, and this was requested by a few people to cover configurations in depth and explain all sorts of stuff. So let's jump right into it. So as you can see, I've created this basic plugin, and all it does is call this save default configuration method, save default config, and I also have a config.yml saved and created in our resources folder. And yeah, there we go. So all this will do, if we were to go ahead and reload our server, would generate this folder and this config.yml file inside of it, which matches up with our saved when inside of IntelliJ here. So that's all that does. It's just taking our default and gives us our configuration. And this is only going to create our file if we don't have one already. So yeah, that's our basics. That's step number one. So you've created your default configuration. Now, what if we want to access values inside of our configuration? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to say, I'm going to create a quick method in here to public void log object. Oops, I think it has to be a string. I'm just going to say get logger.info string. Yeah. Okay, so now that we have that, we're going to go ahead and log. We're going to say get config. So this is going to access our config.yml file. And we're going to say .get, and we're going to want our integer. And whoops, we want to wrap this in string.value of, so we can get the value of this integer. We go ahead and take a look at our config.yml. We just need to give the name of int. And there we go. So what is this doing? Well, we are accessing our configuration. I'm going to split this up a little bit. We are accessing our configuration, and we're going to get an integer inside of that, and we're giving it the path int. So a little bit behind configurations, if I was to make a few comments in here. Configurations have these things called keys and paths. Now, a key is something at the right here. So this is a key. This int is a key. But if I was to say, I don't know, like Jordan dot, and then, whoops, Jordan, then I do spaces, and then I say Osterberg, and then make that equal to 5. This is my path. I say Jordan dot Osterberg, and this is what I type in if I want to access that value. Of course, that doesn't actually mean anything for us, so we're fine. Actually, I'll keep that in there for a proof of concept in a second. Anyway, you can see that is our path. So we say Jordan.Osprey to access this, and since this is not below anything, it's just a standard key. It's just int, and that's how we access that. So we can go ahead and print that. I'm also going to print the value of Jordan.Osterberg for a proof of concept here, and I'm hoping that doesn't break it, but we'll see. So let's go ahead and update our plugin. So I take this one here, go into here, and reload our server. Cool, so it's going to say 1 and 5. Oh, that's right, okay. So the reason this didn't have any weird output, I was expecting this to be a little strange, is because even though we don't have a file or a Jordan.Osterberg key here, inside of our default configuration file, there is Jordan.Osterberg, and so it's going to access off that. It's a little strange, but a lot of the configuration system is very strange inside of Bukkit/Spigot. So we can go ahead and let's change integer to be something like, I don't know, 69, because I'm immature. We're going to reload the server, and it's going to print out 69. So it's just reading that value from our file. So if we go ahead and go, well, what do we want to do? Let's go ahead and change one of our values. So we're just going to say log changing Jordan.Osterberg to be equal to, I don't know, just all sorts of random numbers. So we'll take this. We want to say get config. So again, this accesses our our config.yml file. We're going to say set, and it's asking for our path. So we want to go ahead and say Jordan.Osterberg, because that's our path, to be equal to that value. And we're going to go ahead and call the save config method, which, as the name implies, it saves our config file. So we go ahead and reload this, and find our plugin, which is all the way over here, update it, go ahead and reload, and it says changed. So now if we were to go ahead and check it out, it should, yep, it has that value in there. And if we were to actually reload this, it's going to go ahead and print out this number right here for Jordan.Oster because that's what it is in the configuration file now. So now that we're good to go with all this stuff, went ahead and learned how to, that's how you get and that's how you set variables. And the process is the same for any type. You just say get config or .get. You know, we can get a string list, we can get a boolean, we can get a etc. etc. It's you just get for whatever you want. Or if you have some other object that you've saved that's a serializable, then you can get it through this. And the same deal is true with set. You just give it the path and the value. There we go. So that's all fine and dandy. We have, I'm hoping you all have a general understanding thus far. But what if we don't want just this config.yml file? What if we want something else? Because for the most part, you don't want to save user data in a config.yml file. That doesn't make much sense. You might want that in a user data folder inside of your plugin folder, and then you have the files in there per user or however you want to do it. Well, I'm going to go ahead and comment all this out. Actually, we don't have to. I'm going to go ahead and make a new class, and this is going to be a user data class. And we're going to have a few methods in here. We are going to go ahead, whoops, we need a user data. Okay, so I want a public user data, so create this initializer in here. And what I want to do is I want to say string path, and then I want to say file. Do I want file? I want YAML configuration. File configuration. That works. So let me quickly backtrack here and explain what a YAML configuration is. So a YAML configuration is essentially all the data inside your file. When we get our config, oops, I have to be inside here to do that. When I say get config, that returns a file. Oh, my mistake. It does not need to be YAML configuration. It needs to be file configuration. Whoops. That's why that was being weird. Okay, so disregard that real quick. Whenever I have a file configuration, I can go ahead and do those same operations. I can get the string list, I can set things inside of this, and I can also save it, which I'll show how to do in just a second. That's a little different. But it's our configuration file is a file configuration. So when we're calling get config, that's returning a file configuration. Okay, now that that's working properly, what we're going to say is we're going to say if file configuration dot get, and we're going to say path does not equal null. So essentially what this does, this checks if a key exists at a path. So if it does not equal null, then cool. Then it works just fine. However, now we want to go ahead and set some values. So maybe we're going to have their name. So we're going to say private string name, and maybe private int, or private double money. So that works just fine. So we're just going to say this.name is going to be equal to file configuration.get path plus .name. Whoops, it need to be get string. And same deal for money. We're just going to say file configuration.get double path plus .money. And after that, we should be good to go. Otherwise, if it reaches down here, we can, yeah, we'll just do nothing because, yeah. So now we're just going to go ahead and say we're going to get our money, get our name, whoops. We're going to say set money and set name. Now that we have all these just basic getter and setter methods within Java, we need a public void save method inside of here. And this is just going to save our data. So I believe we can say, whoops. We'll save an instance of our file configuration. I'm just going to say this dot file configuration equals file configuration. And actually, we're going to go ahead and make sure that file configuration is not null as well, because I'm sure that's always possible somewhere. Anyway, we're going to say if file configuration does not equal null, file configuration.save. And so when we have this save method, it wants to save it inside of a file. So we're going to say save to, and we're going to have a file argument as well. And so this will be handled by, wherever. So what we want to do is we just want to go ahead and say file configuration dot set, and we're going to say, oops, we should probably save our path as well, private string path. This dot path equals path. And so we're going to say path plus dot name is going to be equal to get name. And we're going to do the same thing for money. Cool. So same deal. Works just as you'd expect. Here we're going to set these values like we've done before, except only now we're going to say file configuration dot save to our file. And we need to go ahead and try catch this for an IO exception, common exception within Java and file stuffs. We're also going to check that file does not equal null as well, just again to make sure. So let me just explain this real quick just to make this a little bit more clear. We're going to go ahead and instantiate our user data class here with a path and a file configuration. We're going to set those in here, just normal Java stuff. Make sure that our file configuration is actually real, and we're going to make sure that this path, or that there's a key at this path, or that the path even exists at all. Then we're going to go ahead and instantiate our name and our money from that path. And then down here we have more setters. Then we have save to. We give the system a file, and we make sure the file's real. The file configuration is again real, and then we set our values just to quickly save them, and we save it to our file. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and create our user data handler in here. And whoops, I want this to be a singleton. So now we just go ahead and set this to be a singleton so we can access it like this. And so now we want inside of our, no, that's not going to work. What we want to do, make this a little prettier first of all, we're going to say public void load. And we're going to say file plugin folder. So now that we have our plugin folder, we're going to say plugin folder dot, oops, how do we access the folders inside the, well, okay, we want a file user data folder is going to be equal to a new file. Oh, what does it want? It wants a path name, correct? Yeah, path name. Okay, so now that we have this, we're just going to say plugin folder dot get, whoops, get absolute path plus, and then we want a file dot path separator, and then we're just going to say user data. Now let me quickly explain this because this is a little more complex. We're going to go ahead and load our user data stuff by giving the plugin folder to this load method. And then we're going to create a user data file, and this is actually going to be a folder, but a folder in Java can be a file. It's very strange. And so then we're going to get our plugin folder's absolute path, so that's going to be our path on our hard drive or our disk drive that we're using. Then we're going to get our path separator, which the reason we're using this symbol instead of just hard coding a slash is because on Windows it can be a backslash, and I'm sure on some other operating system years into the future it's going to be different. And this just makes sure that it uses the proper one for the proper system that you're running your server on. Then we're just going to type in user data for the name of our folder. So what we want to do now is we're going to say if the user data file dot exists, then we're going to say user data folder dot make directory. In fact, I'm going to say make directories in case it needs to make more than one. So now that that works, we're going to say if user data file dot exists. We're going to make sure it exists. Actually, we don't really need to do that. We know it will. Now what we're going to do is we're going to say user data file. Well, wait, hold on. Now we need to go ahead and load each individual user's data. Although we're not going to do it that way because we don't need to. We're not going to have, okay, let me backtrack that. What we would most likely do is load data as we need it. We wouldn't want to load every single player's data every single time the server boots or, the plugin boots, because that's using our data way too It's really unnecessary. It's going to do too much computation, and it's going to slow down your server and probably your TPS, and it'll just piss people off. And so what you want to do is just load that as necessary. So I'm just going to say user data equals new user data. We're going to instantiate this. We're going to give it a path of just the root path, and then we're going to say, oh, here's what we want to do. Before we instantiate this, we need to just get our file configuration. So how do we get a file configuration from a file? Well, we just need to say Jordan. We're going to say Jordan. We're going to hard code this. It's going to be inside user data file, and it's going to be jordan.yml. This will essentially it'll create a file inside, or it'll get a file inside of our user data folder, which is user data. Okay, I'm going to refactor this, make that a little clearer. No, shoot, wrong button. User data folder makes more sense now. So we're going to create this file inside of our user data folder, and it's going to be called jordan.yml. We're just going to do some basic checks. If jordan.exists, then jordan.create new file. And this is going to cause an IO exception, right? Yeah. Cool. So now we're going to go ahead and just leave the path empty. We don't need that for this. What we can do is we can say YAML configuration. That's what we wanted from earlier. We're just going to say load configuration from our file. And there we go. We now have our user data. So what I'm going to do is just say private list user data list. And what does user data want for saving? It just wants the file. I'm going to change the way this path works because we don't need this path because it's really unnecessary. So we're just going to say file, change this from path to file. We're just going to, we don't even need to make this check right here anymore, but I'm just saying that's how you would check, so keep that in mind. And then we're just going to go ahead and set the file equal to, file equals file. Get rid of this whole path system here. Cool. And again, get rid of the path system. Oops. There we go. And then we're just going to say save. And that'll work exactly the way it would have. Alrighty, so now that that's working properly again, we're going to pass in our file instead of our path. And then we're just going to say user data list dot add user data. There we go. So this will work much better. So let me kind of explain what I just did there. Instead of using a path, because or in our initializer, we don't need that path, so I just got rid of it completely. When we specify this, it's just going to give it at our top level here. We don't need the dot stuff because we're not going any level lower than that, so we're fine there. What I did instead is save the file so that we can just call this save method later and have that file at the ready for saving. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a public void save, and we're going to say for user data list dot for. No, that doesn't work. We're going to say for user data colon user data list. So for every single piece of user data we have, we're just going to save it. Good. All nice and done. Let's go ahead and run user data handler dot load, or get instance dot load. We're going to say get data folder. That's where our plugin folder is. And then on disable, we're just going to say user data handler dot get instance dot save. And I'm pretty sure this will have some huge bug in it, like all my plugins like this usually do. So let's go ahead and boot our server, make sure everything's working fine. Yep, awesome. Expected that. No pointer exception. Data loader 38. What's that 38? Does it somehow? How does it equal? No, I just created it. What? Oh, our user data list is no. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, so we're just gonna say a new array list. One thing that is not quite working the way I had expected it to here is this. Shouldn't it be inside of our... Oh, that's why we want to get rid of that altogether. And now that should work fine. So I just got rid of that file separator thing. We want to create this inside of our folder. So let's try this one more time. With those changes, we're going to do this. And there's a few more changes I want to make this run a little better. We're going to reload. It's going to have issues disabling. That's okay. There we go. So this works fine now. Much better. And we have our Jordan.yml. If we reload it, it's going to not have any of those exceptions. So now we have a slight problem. And actually what I want to do on disable is print out all of our data. Actually, we can do that inside of save. So we're just going to say well, now I need to access our plugin. Ha! Wonderful. Let's go ahead and say private configuration, private static actually. Configuration equals this, and we just want to say get configuration. Cool, so inside of user data we're going to say configuration get instance.log name, colon, and then get name, and we just want to say get money for our money. Okay, so we're just going to print out our variables, and what's going to happen is you're going to see absolutely nothing. So we need to not put that in there, put that there, reload and reload it again, and you can see name is null and money is 0. Well, why is this? That's because we don't have any variables. Whoops, wrong one. We don't have, wait, did it just like, oh, looks like the comments got out of order. That's weird. As you can see, we only have, oh, looks like money did 0.0. But name is still null. Name is not there, so it's going to have trouble figuring this out. Well, what we want to do is we want to say if, before we check this, we want to say if file configuration dot get name equals null. So we're just going to say check if name exists. Doesn't exist actually. So if the name doesn't exist, we're just going to set it to a default. We're going to say file configuration dot set name is going to be equal to, I don't know, Jordan maybe, and then we're going to do the same check for money. We're just going to do money, and we're just going to say like, I don't know, a couple lines. Cool, good enough. Actually, I need to put a .9. There we go. So now we're just going to check if these values don't exist, and if they don't, we're going to populate them. Whoops, what did I just do? There we go. Then we're going to populate them as necessary. So we're going to reload this. Money and all that's still null. And if we check inside of this, we're going to see our new values. Or not, actually. Let's refresh this. Well, you know what? That won't happen because we never saved the file. So they will be in here now. Well, the money wouldn't because the money wasn't null. But if I was to say, reload it again. Actually, money's going to be perpetually 0 because of the way we handled this. We made it so we can't change the file while the server is running. Of course, you can modify it just a little bit. Essentially, when we have this file instance and this file configuration instance, we're saving those, and we're not saving anything that the server operator has. You know, if they've edited the file, this stuff right here is what's going to actually end up being saved, not the stuff that's been changed by the server owner. Okay, hopefully that makes any sense. So there we go. Yeah, we're good to go there. I think that pretty much covers a lot of stuff. One thing I do want to go over really quick, because it could be important in some cases, is going over every single key inside of your config. So what do I mean by this? Well, as I said before, if we look inside of config, all of these are keys. And I'm going to get rid of these extra comments. All of these values are keys, and we want to just list them out. I don't know, you might want to. In case you want to access data that has unique keys and you don't know what they are, this is how you would do that. So if we say for string key colon get config, dot get the keys. Yeah, there we go. So we can just say get keys and then deep. We want to say false in here, and this means we're only just going to get the top level stuff. We're not going to get anything below that. And if you wanted to go deeper, you could. It's just up to your own discretion. So if we just say log key, load this for the last time, go ahead and copy our file there, reload, and as you can see, it's going to print out int double boolean list and Jordan. And if we check our config, just to make sure this is what we have indeed we have int double boolean list and Jordan, and of course it's not going to get the Osterberg there. So if we were to set this to true, oops, I'm pretty sure it would print out the Osterberg, although I could be completely wrong. Let's see. Yeah, no, never mind. I'm not sure exactly why it doesn't do that, but it's just not. Anyway, that has been it for this video. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to leave comments below. I'm also going to link this configuration API reference right here, so you can go ahead and read this just to see how all this stuff works, in case I didn't cover something. And of course it covers all sorts of stuff, although this is loading things weird. Anyway, same deal. Hope you guys found this interesting, or hope you learned something at least. If you have any video suggestions, make sure to leave them down below. I record every single one of them, and we'll get to it eventually. This one took a little bit longer than I would have hoped, but that's okay. Again, hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you all have a great day. Take care.